Hello, and thank you for joining me on this course about how to negotiate large quantity sales without being a professional negotiator. This is Book Selling University course 136, and I am Brian Judd. I'm your instructor for the course today, and have a lot of experience with negotiating as well, just being executive director of the Association of Publishers for Special Sales. But I've been in the corporate world and working as the VP of marketing and was involved with negotiating some large sales, and it was uh, invigorating to win and instructional when I didn't get what I wanted. But at any rate, I have written books on the topic. I've written books about book marketing in general. But the thing is that when you're negotiating, when you're doing things that, uh, when you're asking for a raise, when you're going on a job interview, when you're buying a house or buying a car, you're involved with negotiating. So you already have a good feel of what to do, and we'll just channel what you already know into the book marketing world, how to negotiate for large quantity sales. And these don't have to be 100,000, 50,000 copies of a book. It could be 1,000 book order, or it could be five or 10,000, or it could be 500. It doesn't matter because the skills that you'll find here, that once you practice and use them, will really aid you in closing any kind of a book sale. And it could be on the first call when you reach a prospective buyer, or it could be after a series of presentations that that you've made about your book. But at any rate, what we'll do in this course is we'll talk about how to create a win-win solution. This is really important because and when you're negotiating a sale, you're obviously closing that order, but you're also looking for recurring revenue. If you're calling on a corporate buyer, for example, then that person may buy X thousand books initially, but then place a blanket order for additional books or recurring revenue that if the buyer is happy, that you've created that win-win solution, and you're happy, and that you've uh, met your objectives, you've gotten paid, and you're selling a lot more books, and the buyer is happy because his or her problems have been solved by using your book as a promotional item. And that's what most of these large sales are for, where they buy your book as a premium. That their objective is to not buy books, but to use your content as a way to reach their objectives. For example, if you're contacting a human resources manager, and that person's objective is to increase the productivity, the attitude of employees, and perhaps reduce absenteeism. So your content could get the employees more involved with what they're doing, and help them respect themselves and respect their careers more. So everybody wins that. Or it might be an association. The membership chair of an association's objective is to increase membership. If they use your book as a thank you to give to people who renew their membership or who join the association, they get a free copy of your book. So those are the types of large quantity sales we're discussing here. So these are, if you look at the other courses about how to sell to non-bookstore, non-retail buyers, or to even to non-bookstore retailers, that you can increase your sales, and you're negotiating on a lot of different levels. There are some traps to avoid. That if you're not used to negotiating, then there are some things that may traps you might fall into. They're not something that's going to be uh, well in the short term. It's not going to kill all your chances for it, but it's something that if you can recognize some traps before they occur, or as they're occurring, you recognize that they are occurring, then you can avoid them. Also want to learn how to complete the sale. And this is not closing. It's not the hard close. I remember years ago I was working as a sales representative for Xerox. We were taught all these manipulative closing techniques, and you don't do that anymore. You're looking to confirm a sale and to okay an agreement, and to create that win-win solution that everybody on all sides is happy with what you've done. So it's almost a natural transition into the final sale, or completing the sale. So it's not something that requires a lot of tension. And then the post sale activities. This is really different from most sales you're used to. If you're selling to bookstores, when we get your distributor to sell the bookstore, to get them on the shelves in bookstores, and then you're doing your promotion. There is no real post sale activity. But in this larger quantity sale, then yeah, order once the order is signed, then you still have a lot to do in order to uh, make sure the books are delivered on time. That's the right customization, that they're printed properly. So these are all the details that you have to negotiate, or at least have to follow up with when you have a large quantity sale. So where does negotiating fit in the sales process? We've looked at this on other courses. At first, understanding special sales, and then defining the target reader and who's going to buy your books. And then the retail portion of it. We looked at a lot on this about how to sell to non-bookstore retailers. And here you're negotiating with distributors, you're negotiating with the retail buyers. It could be at an airport store, it could be at a supermarket, it could be at a Costco or a warehouse club or discount store. But you're negotiating those terms, and the follow-up is involved there, certainly. And then you're doing more prospecting, and when you're prospecting for retail buyers, you're negotiating with them to get your books on the shelf. On the non-retail side, you do your prospecting, and these are all these other courses that we've had with uh, book selling university courses. But you may just call on a buyer, and they're interested in a case of books. So you promote, you do the follow up, and then you prospect for more buyers, and then you do these. We had other courses here on sales presentations, but here's where it fits into this this process of negotiating the order and then doing the follow up. So negotiating is involved with many parts of the special sales process. And what we'll do here is just talk about how to make that as easy as possible for you and help you become more profitable. There's obviously the preparation to negotiate. And I have always talked about book marketing in general and negotiating in particular as being as simple as pie. You prepare, then implement, then evaluate. So you're always doing the preparation first, and you're not looking at on your mark, go, get set. That you want to get set first. It's on your mark, get set, go. And so the preparation is required before you start doing anything, before you go. And it's so that's we'll look at how to prepare for that. But just it's learning what to do and being flexible. If you understand a variety of different directions in which you can go, then you have that flexibility during the negotiation to move in different directions, in different ways. So that if you have that flexibility, certainly have the right attitude. And that certainly it's being confident, and that confidence is a belief in yourself and understanding that your content is good, that you are the credible source of that content, and you've worked hard at it. Now, you understand how this information in your book can help this corporate buyer, this association membership chair, or the buyer at a military exchange, that you're confident that your information will help them as much as it will help you. That enthusiasm, that passion you have for that. I think negotiating is really just a transfer of that passion where you believe in what you're doing. You want to get that buyer, prospective buyer, to believe in what you can do. So you just transfer that enthusiasm. That's having a smile on your face and relaxed and getting excited about when you're talking about it. But still, you have to remain focused on what is at hand. You can't just talk about your enthusiasm or demonstrate your enthusiasm. Well, maybe you should say you focus your enthusiasm. So when you are talking about the prospect's problems, and the focus is on the customer, not on you. The focus is on how your content can help that person solve that problem of the employee productivity, or introducing a new product, or increasing the sales of an existing product, or increasing the membership of an association, or maybe using your book as a fundraiser. So you're focused, but your enthusiasm is transferred to that person. You also have a commitment to what you're doing, to commitment to a win-win situation, the commitment to coming up with creative ideas and coming up with new information that can. A lot of these times during the negotiation, the perfect answer will just come to you. Certainly cooperative, where that's the win-win, where you're both working on towards the same goal to making that happen. Flexibility is based on the concept of the preparation, where you know how your book can be used, and you know about what you want to occur. But then the buyer goes up in a different direction. Say, yeah, I think it would work that way, but it even work better if we use it in this different division. So that's part of the strategy, the strategic part of the process, where you're always working or open-minded to that, but you have your objective, what you want to do, but it's not like you have blinders on and just look at that. That your focus remains on the completion of the sale or the win-win sale, but the way that you get there is through strategic flexibility and also strategic creativity. It's coming up with questions like, say, what if we tried this? How about if we, instead of putting, you want to sell more 20-pound bags of dog food, and I have this book on dog care. So instead of sending people a book, which would increase your shipping costs, well, what if we put a coupon on the 20-pound bag of dog food for a free download of this book? So there is no shipping cost, and you don't have to have the increased weight of the book in the package. And so that's just that. What if, what if we did that? Then you get people talking about that, and it may have more detailed information, and it's almost the opposite of being relaxed in the sense that details are important. They say that if the devil's in the details, but that the more that's part of your follow up too, that you have the complete professionalism of getting the job done, getting negotiation done, and relaxed, comfortable, cooperative, enthusiastic, creative attitude. So you have all that information. So also in each negotiation, you have to have this opportunity specific knowledge. In the sense, the opportunity is the prospect with whom you're dealing at this time. There may be multiple people that you have your ally in the company, that the person with whom you're negotiating, they may have purchased 100 books just to test. So you have the ally who is the person who conducted the test, and it was conducted successfully. Now that person wants to help you get involved with the company on a larger scale. So they're doing this in a multiple divisions, perhaps, or a larger scale. Instead of just doing it in a test market in the Northeast, now you're going to have a national rollout. But you know about the people. Do a little survey on LinkedIn, on little, uh, Facebook, or whatever. You don't want to act like you're stalking, but have some basic information. If you know where they went to college, for example, and maybe that's on their LinkedIn profile. Maybe it's the same school you went to, or you're familiar with it. Maybe they just did very well in some big sports activity, so you can start up a negotiation in a positive way if you know that. So you know about the company. Do they have different divisions? What are their products? What particular products are you looking at? Is it a multinational company? Is it something that they can use your book and your content in different countries? So you have to have it translated. But the more that you can understand that you know their procedures, do they their buying procedures, and this is something before you negotiate on a larger scale, and then you just talk to your ally in the company and get that information. But you're also knowing about the industry, about the competition, particularly for this person. When you're working for this product, that you if you're working with a company, you may in one day be contacting a buyer in healthcare. The next day, you're contacting a buyer in banking or insurance or food business, whatever. But you understand something about the industry and about the competition. And when we looked at the prospecting, we looked at the finding these buyers, of making your prospects or characterizing them as A, B, or C. The A being your top prospects that are really big companies that can buy in large quantities, and they're ready to buy now. Perhaps the B companies are those that are could be buyers that maybe they just purchased something, maybe they just completed their marketing campaign for this quarter, and they don't want to talk to you until next quarter. And then the C's are something that are probably not going to buy your books at all. But here's where you want to start out. Start out with your C uh, prospects. Those that if you wreck the sale, if you blow the negotiation, then it's not something that's going to impact your rest of your life. But just to understand that the criteria that they have, whether it's increasing sales, reducing absenteeism, and what options can you think about using your book? And certainly you know about the history of the people involved and the companies, and what are their interests? Their interests may be to increase profits. So that's their interest. They want to increase the profitability of this. But their position is, well, we've never used a book before. We've always used coffee mugs as a promotional item. So I need to learn more about that. So you talk about you dwell on their interests of the fact that they want to be more profitable. So you show them how they can be more profitable using your book. But see, the more that you have this information, the more flexible you are. But that's opportunity specific. But also, you need to. This may sound odd, but you need to know about your book, and you have to understand the benefits of it, and not the size and the number of pages, but more you're thinking of the benefits of it and the how that content is always selling the content, not the physical book, but the information in that. You think of the product of Arm& Hammer baking soda. That's used for a variety of different ways. It's used as a for recipes as a deodorizer and putting out fires and fireplaces, toothpaste. So people use that same product. The product hasn't changed in any of those circumstances, and the use of it has changed. So same with your book. That if you're talking to a corporate buyer, then you're looking at how they can increase profitability. If you're talking to an association manager, you're talking about how to increase membership. If you're talking to a retailer, you're talking about how to increase store traffic and profitability. Talking to a librarian, they don't care about profitability. They're thinking about how can how can I use that book to help my patrons. So again, the more that you know about the content of your book, and use the testimonials when the people are asking you, the buyers are asking you, who else has used this, or why should they won't say why should I believe you, but you can tell by looking at them that perhaps they're a little bit skeptical of your ability to perform. So we have these testimonials and endorsements that demonstrate the value that you bring. You might have examples and stories, certainly, that you can bring and talk about it, because you don't want the presentation and negotiation just to be a one-sided presentation. It's a cooperative event where you're working together. So you use these examples and stories and get them involved with it. And perhaps using the references and the customization, or you might have the references as far as maybe a sheet of those that you can put in your pitch pack. The customization, they may ask for a tip-in page or for a logo on the cover, something like that, or maybe changing the name from in a cookbook, instead of adding ketchup to the recipe, you add a brand of Heinz ketchup to that. So that might be throughout the book. But at any rate, you find out the cost and the terms for doing that. And this lightning source link may help you come up with different pricing and different quantities. So when you go into the buyer and start talking about it, you can describe the terms in different quantities. I mean, different prices, different quantities. Here's something that is really, I think you'll find helpful. Before you go into any negotiation, come up with your best negotiated outcome, which I call the BNO. So you make a list of all the outcomes that would be acceptable to you. The right terms, low shipping costs, and maybe shipping to one or two locations instead of multiple locations, a large quantity, high price, little customization, a long term to produce the books. So which of these would be the best for you? Well, it certainly might be a high quantity, high price, but what are you willing to negotiate away in return for that? If one of your criteria is non-returnable, then maybe you're willing to give a little bit more of a discount if it's non-returnable. So if you go through this, what are you not willing to give away? What would improve your best negotiated outcome? So when you have these different concepts already in mind, that when you have this flexibility, your final B&O is for each individual customer. It may be different for each individual customer. So but going in, you know what you're willing to negotiate away and what you're not willing to negotiate away. One thing that will help your confidence, and you want to think about before you go in also, is your BATNA. This is not my term, this is an industry term, but it's what is your best alternative to a negotiated agreement. When the buyer waves that $50,000 check in front of you and says, can you deliver those 10,000 of these 4-color books in 2 weeks? Well, you think, well, maybe I'm pretty sure I can do that. I'll just take the check now. But if you know that you've got other alternatives, other prospective customers out there, then you're less pressure on you to take an order that you don't feel comfortable or confident that you can actually fulfill. So if you know what your parameters are for your negotiation going in, that you know what your best negotiated outcome is, you know the parameters that you're willing within which you're willing to negotiate, then you're ready to start negotiating. And that's where you're dealing with your customers and you're working with them and coming up with the best solution using your book as the solution to their problems. So what does negotiating look like? Well, it's an interesting concept. Here's what I think negotiating looks like. It may seem odd, but when you first go into a negotiation, it's it's all cost. They don't know what the value of it is, and they're a little skeptical because you're the publisher, you're the author, perhaps. Maybe both the author and the publisher go in, but they assume that you're being a little bit subjective, and it's all cost and no value. So what you're down here that you understand the value and the trust that you can bring to the organization to the negotiation. So you talk about here about your references and your testimonials and your professionalism and your flexibility and your creativity and your relationship building and your trust factor. All these build up, and you don't get the order until this point. Now, the more that you can keep building up here with examples of delivery or success stories and testimonials and whatever you can do this. Now, here's where your profit is increased. Here you have more leeway in your pricing because they're more sold. Their skepticism is going down and their trust in you is going up. So this is basically what negotiating is to come up with building this value and this trust in you, but making sure that it's this win-win situation too, that they understand that the value that you bring, so the cost is significantly reduced. So there are four ways to sell more to folks, how to create that value. It's the selling with certainty concept. One is have objectivity, because when you first walk in, they're thinking that this guy, this lady, this person, the author, this publisher, they're just trying to sell me their books, and your words reinforce that or dispel it. If you come in there just talking about it, you start talking about, tell me about what you really want to accomplish here. What happened in your last campaign? What went right? What went wrong? If you waved your magic wand, what would you do? So you're creating this sense of objectivity where you're there not just to sell your books, but you're there to help them solve their problem and create that win-win situation. Certainly, you want to build consensus, and that the more that you can get the multiple buyers agreeing on that cost curve, that they're agreeing in the value and that you bring, and that they feel that sense of trust with you. All of a sudden, you get multiple people on your side. And if you can certainly find out who the decision maker is, you have decision influencers and decision makers. So that you find out who the decision makers are and get them to agree, then everybody else follows along with that. So the reinforcement is reinforcing the positive comments. If someone says, "Well, that's a good idea. That could really work," you say, "I agree," and it's proven to work that in the past. And what other ways you think we could do that? So you get them to come up with the ideas, and when they come up with the ideas, then it certainly reinforces in their mind. Then when you summarize, you say, "Well, Miss Jones brought this point up, which is really good, and we all agreed that was a positive way to move forward." So the more that you can reinforce what people say, the more that you can make them part of the decision, the much more likely they are to, in fact, buy. And certainly building that trust and building that value is credibility in you. That are you the informed enough? Trying to think of the right words here. Do you have the experience to be the credible author of this information, or as a publisher, what credibility do you have, not necessarily just in content, but in delivery of all this information? So you may have come in with a distributor, come in with a printer. So you don't have to always go in by yourself on this. Have other people who can help you, people who are on your side, be on your side. So but that just it's a whole credibility factor that you're the whole package that you bring to them, which is the book, the author, the backup, the follow up, the experience that you all that you bring is all already. So certainly what you want to do is find solutions to the problems that you go there as a consultant. You don't go there as a publisher. You go there as a consultant. That okay, you want to increase sales of this product. You want to increase them internationally. You want to increase them just region by region. Do you want to increase them in airport stores or supermarkets, or you want to increase them in corporate sales? So you're getting that information. There's a lot of questions before you go in there. You're not just talking about your book. You're talking about the situation, circumstances that why did they invite you in there? What do they want your book, your content to accomplish? And you don't walk in thinking that if I sell this many books, I'll make $20,000, because then your focus is on your book and not on being a consultant. So you're always thinking about the opportunity, but you obviously have that in your mind, but you're thinking the opportunity is that win-win situation where you're working together to create the solution. So you're not negotiating a sale of your books, you're solving problems. And you're not making sales, you're making customers. And this is really important for that long-term perspective when you get that recurring revenue, that you can maintain the focus on the situation, on the buyer's needs, and how your content can help solve that problem. And you're much more likely to make the sale. So this is what negotiating is. It's not head-to-head arguing, and some people think that's what negotiating is, but it's not. It's just two people or several people talking and trying to come up with the best solution to the circumstances at hand, what you're trying to do. But it helps if you can control the discussion. And some ways you can do that, obviously, stimulating the imagination of coming up with this is the what if type questions. How about if we, where would you put your logo on the cover? That type of concept. That if you can, or if what if we use the book as an ebook? What if we did it as an audio book? Or what if we did it? How about if we, instead of having the author, or in addition to the author, providing you the content in the book, how about if the author becomes your spokesperson too? And that's something that you can do. But you're asking questions that stimulate the imagination, getting them to think about your book, and then be bold. That's part of the confidence, not cocky, but confident. You're coming across, well, if they say, well, your price is too high. Well, what do you mean? We talked about the value we bring. We can do this, we can do this, we can do this, we can do this. Don't you think that's a reasonable request to ask for that amount of money? So, and then, but be flexible in that too. It's not, take it or leave it, but bolding is being able to ask that, well, instead of ordering 10,000 copies now and 10,000 in 3 months, why don't you place the order for 20,000 now, and we'll have them ready to ship if you need them early, but at least we can get at a lower price if we get to the printer at this point. You're surprising others, not in a negative way, but you're surprising them with your consultation, with your objectivity, with your desire to get the consensus, because they expect you to be maybe not pushy, but certainly subjective and not objective. But if you come up with this, let's talk about you. Let's talk about your book, your problem. Let's talk about what you want to accomplish here. Tell me what you did on this last marketing campaign to the same prospect. What happened? And then you can also direct the focus. That we talked before, you need to be focused on their problems, but you can direct the focus on that. Are you talking about, by using the questions you ask? Are you talking about pricing? We'll talk a little bit later about how to take the emphasis off pricing and put it on some non-price issues, and controlling the pace that you can get excited. The more that you can talk about people or talk about what's going on, and you get excited, and then you slow down a little bit to make sure that they understand what you're saying. So you vary the pace, you control the pace, and you can get that enthusiasm by getting them involved with your pace, and also controlling the direction. You may say, well, 3 things we really need to accomplish today. We need to talk about the people involved, the problem that they have, and our plan to solve that problem. So let's talk about the people first. Who are your customers? Who are the people that you want? Who are the people that are most likely to buy your book in a supermarket or buy your product, not your book, buy your product in a supermarket. What ages are they? And so you're talking about their target readers, their customers, and that's giving them that confidence that's probably surprising them because they expect you to just talk about how great your book is. Then you organize all the pieces in negotiating. You bring in that's in the summary particularly that you talk about. Okay, we described how we'll put this information in as a coupon on the package of dog food. Now we talked about how we'll educate the retailers about this whole concept. Then I need to talk how we're uh, um, tell your salespeople about this promotional campaign so that they can talk to their retailers about it. So we have these three pieces that we need to make sure that we organize and coordinate. So you, as the person doing that, orchestrating the topics of discussion, then you are controlling that. And it's very subliminal in the sense that you're not going in there, you're being bold, but not so bold that they come across as being pushy and talking down to anybody. So you control the discussion somewhat subliminally, but that's part of the preparation that you've done that. So let's look at some tips for negotiating and some things that you can help you. Again, if you have a good BATNA, your best alternative, you don't have to give in to ultimatums. It's either you drop your price or I'm not going to place the order. That's something. Well, I'm sorry that under those circumstances, I just can't make a profitable sale to you. So then that's I think you'll surprise them if that occurs, particularly if it's a fairly significant sum. Don't negotiate on price. We'll look at this a lot later, but what you want to do is get the discussion off price and then onto value. Because if you're talking about price, then a coffee mug costs the same as your book, or maybe an umbrella, or a golf cap, or a baseball cap, or a keychain. So that if you're negotiating on prices, there's no differentiation between these items. It's just, well, I just pick the one that's the lowest cost. But if you create that value of how your ebook is, if they're using coffee mugs now, that they have to store those, they have to ship those, which costs money. When they're shipping, they break some. It's not a differentiated promotional piece, but your ebook has no storage costs, there's no delivery charges, there's no breakage, and it's a differentiated item, so that you're no longer talking about the price of it. The chemistry is crucial in this, that you have to have that relationship. They have to trust you, and you have to trust them too, that they're not trying to take advantage of you. They start giving these ultimatums, that helps destroy the chemistry. But the more that you can not get upset about it, the more that you're able to maintain your equilibrium and your personality, then you can demonstrate the fact that you're a professional, and that you're dealing with professionals, and treat them that way as long as they treat you that way. Start realistically high, and the operative word here is realistic. Don't start off at, well, my book is $14.95, because that's, well, if you're going to buy 5,000 of them, they certainly want a discount off that. Every child knows if he wants a hamster to first ask for a pony. So that's what you're doing here. But again, that's realistically high, not something that is way so out of the ballpark that you're not going to make that happen. And when challenged, listen. And a challenge is not a question. A question is just a question. It's not something that, if you say, how much does your book cost? That's a question. Well, that's too high. Then you ask, what do you mean too high? You can just reflect that back to them. And then the more you listen, sometimes when they're talking, sometimes they will just answer their own questions and say, oh, never mind. It's not a big deal anyway. Let's go ahead. But the more that you can just actively listen to them to whenever the objection comes up, and we'll talk a little more later about handling of objections. But then interpret demands as opportunities. This is something that having a flexibility, the optimism, that if they, for example, they may say that if you deliver these books late, we want you to pay a 10% penalty. And then you can have these different options. You can reject it and lose the deal. I'm not going to pay you 10%. Or you can accept it and seal the deal, but then it may cost you 10% if you're have already come down a lot on your price, then that could result in a loss. You may negotiate a lower penalty or the timing of the delivery. You may say, well, how about if we deliver half or guarantee half the books on time delivery? But then you're kind of hem-hoing, and you don't really come across as that confident, bold consultant. So what if they say that you want to surprise them too? They say, okay, well, I want you to pay a 10% penalty for late delivery. You can say, okay, that how about if that I pay you 20%? But obviously, that you have to know when you come with this comeback, you have to know in your preparation, you know that you can meet this deadline. But then you say, well, how about I'll pay you 20% if they're late, but if you pay me 10% if we deliver early. So then, or how about if we've talked about this campaign increasing your revenue by $1 million? How about if we increase it by 2 million, then I get to 10% of that incremental revenue over the million, anything over the million. So the more that you can come back with these retorts in a professional way, not in a challenging way, but as a way to come back and turn the tables around. So you're coming across as that you're surprising them, you're coming across as a professional. So you can see how these that's an important thing to do, is interpreting demands as opportunities. Some more tips: don't over negotiate. When they sign the agreement, then you can well, it's time to leave. Then you can always come back. What I do is follow up at some point with a written understanding, letter of understanding, that here's what you will do and here's what I will do. If they have a deadline for getting your books delivered, and they're late in getting you their logo for the cover, then you want to make sure that they understand they have to have that logo too on a particular day. Get all points out early. That you don't want to have lingering terms that if they say, well, here's we want this price, you say, okay, you have that price, and then a little bit later say, okay, we'll sign the deal at this price. Well, I didn't really, I forgot to mention about the delivery. There's delivery charge for that. I forgot to mention about the customization charge. So the more that you start doing that, the more that you decrease that trust factor, and they go right back on that X concept with being more skeptical. Don't commit to what you can't do. That's basically when we're talking about that BATNA idea, is that if you don't think that you can deliver on time, don't commit to it, because that's a great way to reduce trust, to reduce or probably eliminate any recurring revenue, any future orders. So, and then ask for clarification. If they say, okay, well, let's get started in 3 months. You'll say, we need to get started with the campaign in 3 months, or place the order in 3 months. So whatever that may be, that just, if you're not sure, ask for clarification. And if you see that they're skeptical, or they don't really look like they understand what you're saying, then ask for clarification. Ask if you have been clear. And so don't say, do you understand what I'm talking about? But you say that it looks a little bit like I didn't make that last point clear. Should I explain it a different way? Then understand the limits. That the people that you're dealing with may not be able to sign an order for that larger quantity. They need to get their boss's signature on the order. So don't pretend that, well, I'm dealing with the wrong person. If you come across that way, then you've lost that ally. And keep notes. It's okay to write things down, and particularly when you send that summary letter to them, have to be accurate on that. That they said they would have their logo to you in 3 weeks, so that way you can stay on track, and you make note of that. So I think it's good when people say something and you write it down. It's a compliment to them. So keep notes, and that just helps you when you're driving home, or the next day you're trying to think about what did they say about this? I forget that they wanted, which color did they want on this page? But if you write that down, there's a saying that the lightest pencil is a lot more memorable than the strongest memory. So that there's some kind of a Chinese proverb that goes along like that. Let's look at even more negotiating tips and anticipate questions that come up. And again, don't think about objections, but think about questions. They're going to ask you questions about pricing, about delivery, about terms, about returnability, about customization. And then, but then also understand that there are certain these barriers out there that could be objections that that the cost or the delivery or the whatever it may be that well, the barrier may be that objection. So you've got to understand how to get around that. So you anticipate the questions, understand the objections, and then know other prices. Know how other prices of coffee mugs and keychains. And they say, well, we're going to go with golf shirts instead of your book. Well, at that quantity, my book is half the price of the golf shirt, and it can be customized in the same way of adding your logo on it. So the more that you can let them know that, or the more that you know the prices of other items, and you can just go online and look for different prices of things, and so you have a good feel for what they'll be paying for. Certainly, you know evaluate the negotiation on the way home. Do that. Just think about what went right, what went wrong, what you can do better next time. And think about what smoke screens people come up with. They say, well, that's we're not going to do that until next quarter unless we can get some kind of a price concession now. Then we'll just put it off. But the reason they had you in there is because they need to have this campaign started, so they're more profitable. So you can get a feel for when they're coming up with these smoke screens or when you understand the people in the negotiation, then you can if you can read the body language, they're rolling their eyes. If some person comes up with that smoke screen and somebody else starts rolling their eyes, and then you can understand the people, understand what the uh, the pros and cons are in the negotiation, and these all change for each negotiation, which is the fun about it, making it happen. Some traps to avoid. You may find a particular formula works very nicely for you. And so you just keep using it over and over and over again. Well, that's not going to work because each negotiation is different. It's different people. They have different problems, different buying procedures. The campaign is certainly a lot different from what others have been doing. So the more that you can be flexible and just have these certain, in your BNO, your best negotiated outcome, you have all those criteria that you want to make sure that you at least address in the negotiation. And that's what your formula is. And if you're not prepared, that's a major trap because that comes across very quickly. You say, if you ask them, what kind of products do you make? And you've demonstrated you have no idea what the company's like, and they'll see people start to close up their notebooks and getting ready, looking at their watches and getting ready to leave. Others' agendas that there may be. In the corporate world, I understand that there are politics, and you have people that uh, don't want to see some people succeed because that makes them look better. And this may be a really good opportunity for the purchasing agent or the marketing manager to make a lot of products, but the sales manager wants to move ahead in the organization, so they're less likely to be on the marketing manager's side. So these are things that a lot of times these personality conflicts you can't do anything about. It could be a personality conflict with you. Maybe they just don't trust you. In that sense, where you want maybe have the author come in, or if you're the publisher, or if you're the author, have the publisher come in to take over the negotiation or the presentation. Don't negotiate on the phone. That you can't read the body language. You can't see what they're doing, and you may be other people in the room, and they're handing each other notes or something. But the more that when you negotiate in person, then you get the feeling of, you get the sense of heading in the right direction or not. And you don't want to sell too hard either. They may say, well, let's wait till next year, and this may be November or October, and they say, well, let's wait till next year, and our budget's kind of shot this year, and so we'll just uh, place the order from January. Brian, come back in January, and we'll talk to you then. And you can instead say, oh no, you got to buy it now because it's the price is down, and I don't know what the price is going to be in January for the printing cost or something. So, but instead, you can use the feel, felt, found method. I understand how you feel. Others have felt that way. But what they found is that when they got the order, they got the products in the fourth quarter, which is particularly generally a slower time, that they got everything in place. They got everybody trained. They got all of the products ready to deliver on time. and then they hit the ground running on January 1st. So it's much more profitable to get all the wheels moving in the fourth quarter. That is historically a slow time of year. So that's the way of getting around that concept without pushing. And you don't want to offer too many choices. We'll start next quarter with Title A, but or we can do next month with Title B, or we can do Title C in this part of the country, or we can do A, B, and C together. Titles A, B, and C together. Which one do you want to go with? Well, that's not what. It's better to offer one choice, discuss that, and then go on to the next. So that will help eliminate any confusion, certainly. And by your keeping notes, you can make sure that you have the reasons why a particular alternative was not chosen. It may, in fact, be not poor timing, but that's something that you have to really get out. It's the difference between a smokescreen and a valid comment. That where this is not a good time of year. Or maybe the economy is heading down. We just want to. It's a great idea, Brian, but it's just the timing is not right for it now. And then it comes to the point where you just can't keep pushing, or you can't keep coming up with these techniques of felt found or something that you just say, okay, I'll be back. Then how about if I give you a call on January 16th at say 10 a.m. It's only a couple months away. Okay, give me a call and we'll see how things have changed. So the critical part there is to create that date in the future upon which you can get back, and then you've got that person's agreement to contact him or her at that future date. So if you want to close, how you can close more sales without lowering your price. I just alluded to this before. First of all, knowing your competition. If you know that you're going against the golf shirt and your book is at that quantity is a lot less expensive, or you know that's the same price as a coffee mug. So the more that you can understand your competition. See, this is when you're selling books retail, you're competing in a bookstore, you're competing against other books. When you're here, you may not have any other books being under consideration. That it's just the other promotional items. So that the more that you know about your competition, the much more likely that you are to do that, to make the sale. Certainly, buyers choose products that meet all needs. Well, that's something that they have objective and subjective needs. You eliminate price competition by coming up with creating more value. That instead of the example before about coffee mugs, they say, well, we're using coffee mugs and the same price, so we'll just do those. But then you can talk about the fact that you have to store them and you have to ship them and they break. And so you want to give valid reasons. You don't want to make up things or coming across that you're just making up, because they have that skepticism that's inbred or that they have, and they want to be able to they want to understand that you're coming across as objectively as possible. Offer other services. If it's a small company, maybe you could have your cover designer create a flyer for them, so that you're showing them how they can, how your seminars or that your training of the salespeople will help their salespeople understand the concept. And when they're talking to the retailers, if they're doing that on-pack coupon, that they'll tell the retailers about the benefits of your book and how they can use that as a way to cross merchandise. Create that visible win, that they understand that if they implement your suggestions, that here's something. Let me take one step back. You don't want to guarantee a win, but you want to create that vision together that you're both looking towards that win. And it's something that it's a visual that you create, that you have that understanding that here's how the books on the shelf will look if you're selling to a retailer, so that you have that. Or here's how your logo on the cover will look, or here's how that the tip sheet can read. But you have that ability to create that winning dual vision using surrogates. That's something that a different way of saying the same thing, that you're talking about the quality of your book. You show the binding of it. You talk about the binding operation and the paper quality. And because you do have to have these create that functional value. But if you can use testimonials or case histories as a surrogate for perhaps uh, the company may not know who you are, or they may never have heard of you as a publisher, or as the author, then you can use the credibility factor of the other companies that have used this, or testimonials. That these are other ways of demonstrating your credibility. And describe your book as your content as a specialty item. It's not a commodity, because people look at books as commodities. They're 6 by 9, X 100 pages, and hardcover, softcover. They're all the same. But the more that you can create that value, so it's not a specialty item. It's something that has um, value in a variety of different ways. For example, here's the way to do it: is creating this value pyramid that you may have. I'm sure if you've had any college course, you've probably heard about Maslow's theory of hierarchy, where you have the basic needs at the bottom, and you go from the food, clothing, shelter. At the very top, you have the self-actualization. Well, I think there's the same concept applies to creating value for your book sale. You have the expected value that so people, when they have you in, they assume that you have a legitimate and acceptable price. The quality is good, and you're an ethical person. That you're not trying to put anything over on them. You're trying to create that win-win situation. Then you have the augmented value. That here's where your consulting comes in. That you have the demonstrating that you want to meet their needs too. That you have these creative solutions to problems. So you're not just the publisher. You're a consultant. You have operational value. See, as you're going up here, you're getting further away from the basic expected value that they're making that assumption. A lot of authors and publishers will focus on that lower level, that how great their book is, and how important the concept, how many years it took to do the research for it. Well, that's fine, but is it going to solve my problems? So that's what they're looking at. And will it be easy to do business with you? About the ordering process, the uh, responsiveness. If something goes wrong, who do I contact? So the individual value, and here's what they're thinking about. I recognize this from my day in the corporate world, that you have that some of the politics going on, and people don't want to make a wrong decision. If they're introducing a new product, and everybody's saying, well, we've used coffee mugs in the past as a promotional item. Let's do that again. You go out on the limb and you're saying that, well, no, I feel this book can really do a lot better job. Will sell a lot more product as a way. Then, so now they're thinking, if I made the wrong decision, I've already put my neck out for this book, and that could ruin my career. So they made. You have to make sure that you let them or reduce that risk, or reduce the anxiety of the decision, and increase the comfort level. Here's where you create that vision together, where you have the social responsibility. It could be that creating ebooks so you're not cutting down trees, or hiring you as the spokesperson because you have that understanding, the knowledge of uh, of the content and of the whole circumstance. But you have that vision, that you're creating that vision together, and that's where the sale is made, at the upper levels of this. That you have to have the acceptable value, of course, but that's not where the decision is made. The decision is made further up on this pyramid, and that's where you really need to focus. And that's just where the understanding people and your relaxation and your trust factor comes into play. But the more you understand that you're there to help them solve problems and create that vision together, then you're not talking about the price and terms of your book. So then you've done a great job and all that. It's time to complete the sale, and this is bringing the process this mutually agreeable conclusion. That's the win-win situation. It's not a hard sell. It's not where you do the Columbo close, where you do the different types of closing techniques that were drummed into my head back years ago. The idea is that you want to confirm the decision. It's not a closing. It's, would you okay this agreement? And, or once you okay this agreement, we can get started to building up your employee productivity. And as you're doing that, you're turning the paper over and handing them a pen to sign it, or whatever. So but you're not. It's not a hard close. It's demonstrating that you're there for that mutually agreeable conclusion. So confirming the order instead of selling it, you summarize it. Well, here's what we all agreed upon, and here's the options that we chose, and here's the start date and the pricing, and here's the putting a logo on the bottom left part of the cover. So let's start. Certainly, you want to ask for the order. If you say you don't want any books today, do you? That's not a great way to ask for an order, but you have to be able to have some kind of a confirming question. It's not the alternative close choice, which is not a good way to close. That do you want these delivered next Thursday or in 2 weeks? But it's some way of asking for the order. First summarize, so it's a natural transition into actually completing the concept. If there is some question about it, listen. We talked before about the importance of listening, and the importance of letting them know that you're there to understand and to help, and not just to push and to sell your books. And when you get to this point, read the body language of your prospects. How are you being received? There's four general types of ways of being received. One, acceptance. Oh, okay, Brian, you're right. Let's get started. I'll sign. Where do I sign? That's everybody's happy. Everybody understands it's a win-win situation. Maybe indifference. Okay, whatever. Then you need to probe a little bit. Well, we talked about this being point A, and you agreed, right? Yeah, I guess. Point 2, did you agree that? Yeah, okay. And so you need to get that wholehearted agreement, because if not, in many cases, they may say, well, never mind, I changed my mind and I'm not going to do it. So if there's any skepticism, you need to be able to bring that up very quickly and find out where does the skepticism lie? What is it in pricing? Is it in delivery? Is it in the ability to that vision? So people may be skeptical. They may have objection. So those are the four basic types of ways that you're being received. And the 1, 2, and 3 are not easy to get over, but certainly understandable. And you just do that by acceptance. Certainly, you just have the agreement okayed and then leave and provide your summary later. But indifference and skepticism, you can generally come up, get people on your side just by reviewing what has transpired so far. But objection is a little bit stronger. There's no way we can do that. The sources of the objections are, well, maybe the prospect has no need. That's probably not the case, because they would not have invited you to come in here if they had no need for it. So the reason that you're there is because they want it. They have some problem they need to solve. They may have no ability to buy. Well, come up with some creative ways about doing it. Maybe they brought you in to buy 1,000 books, but now that you've convinced them they need 10,000, well, they can't afford that. Well, what about perhaps deferred payment? How about if they pay 10% or 20% now and 30% upon delivery and 50% upon on this particular date, or something like that? Where the idea is that you defer payments or take post-dated checks or post-dated invoices or whatever that may be. Maybe some deficiency in your book. Well, if that's the case, correct it. If it's a content that's missing, or that you don't use their brand name throughout, or use certainly. I've had people that just put one brand name in a cookbook, and they take it all competitive companies. That's certainly not a good way to get their trust factor. So if there's a deficiency, find out what it is and fix it. If there's no urgency, that's the feel felt found. That's the way. Again, they had you in there for the reason that. So it's just a smoke screen. They say, well, okay, we'll wait a few months. Well, we talked before about the productivity issue, and that the faster we get your employees more productive, the more successful they'll be, and the more revenue that your company's making. So you try to let them know about the existing circumstances need to be changed as quickly as possible to meet their objective. Terms are not satisfactory. Well, which ones? And come up with the ways to make them satisfactory. You may have made a poor presentation. Well, that's something that you need to practice on. That's just something that really, it took me a long time to understand, that you're not going to make every sale. That you have some things just are not going to work. It could be that the trust is is diminished. May have something that you didn't even say or do, or So it just, you may not make you probably won't make every sale. And matter of fact, I pretty much guarantee you will make every sale. If you do, you're probably going in too low, or not, you're not using the right selling techniques for terms. You're leaving money on the table. So if someone asks a question, that's not an objection. They may say, "Well, how much is your what's the price of your book?" So you listen to the entire question and make sure that they get at exactly what they're talking about. They're talking about price or cost, and so the more that they're talking about it, they may even say, "Well, okay, I see what you mean. This is a stupid question. Don't you say that?" But if they say that, then it's okay. You tell them how everybody asks that question. It's not stupid. Empathize with it. I understand what you're saying. There may be some tension there. That question is that they're getting to the point where they're asking about the price, or maybe a little bit of a tension there. So empathize with it. I understand how you feel. Others have felt that way. So let's talk about that for a minute. Let's focus on that and ask for clarification. When you say the price is too high, do you mean the cost? The price is what they pay per book, but the cost to them, if they pay $50,000 to you to buy your books, but they make $2 million in increased sales, then you're talking about cost, not price. So that's something that, just make sure that you're both defining these terms the same way. Rephrase the question. Okay, now, if I understand you correctly, what you're saying, that the price is too high at this quantity. If we go up to a little bit higher quantity, then how about if we instead of doing a tip-in page, we just do a foil stamp of your logo on the cover. So is that what you mean? So the more you can rephrase the question so it's more beneficial to your position, the better off that you are. Then you answer and confirm it. And does that explain it right? Did I to take the blame for not stating it correctly? Did you say, does that answer your question? Did I answer your question properly? Do that with a little kind of a facial expression that lets them know you're not blaming them for not understanding the question. Now, when they wave that $50,000 check in front of you, do you take the money or run? Well, that's a big decision because you have to be able to make sure that you can deliver on your commitment. So the momentum is hard to resist. Everybody's getting excited about it, that you've transferred the enthusiasm properly. And now they're waving that check, and now you've got to pull things back a little bit. So, and just remember, they don't hold all the cards. If they get that ultimatum, they say, "Okay, here's $50,000, but I need the books delivered in 2 weeks." Well, they say, "Well, I'm sorry, I can't do that. I've got other customers." You don't want to say you got other customers, but just let them know I can't commit to that. If I told you I can do that, I would not be totally forthright. So I can't, in all ethical standards, accept that money. And then you come across as the hero. You know your BATNA. You know that you have other alternatives, other opportunities out there, and then also your intuition. You may not just. There's certain times that you say, well, "This is just not right. I just don't feel right about this. Let's wait a day, or how about if I give you a call back tomorrow?" And just and go with your gut. If you really believe that you can't trust these people, or not, I hate to say that, but there are people that just come across that you may not be able to get along with, and to implement a campaign like this, it may require a long-term commitment on both parts. And you may hear no. Well, don't just pick up and go away. There are some ways of getting to yes after you hear no. Certainly, but solve the problems. Make sure that you did solve the right problem. If they want to reduce absenteeism, and you're talking about how your books, your content can help increase sales, then you have that disconnect. You're not solving the right problems. Give new information. Don't say, you can't let people think that people don't want to change their mind without some reason why. That they lose face, particularly if you're in front of their other peers. So you may even agree with them. Say, yeah, I would have made the same decision had I not known this. But now here's something that can influence that. That if you had known this, and certainly then get them to say, well, boy, if I had known that, then I would have agreed with you. So if you say, well, I agree with you, we catch them by surprise, and then you give them new information so they can change their decision without losing face. The situational factors, maybe they don't want to all agree in front of this purchasing agent or the operations person for political reasons. But if you know that there are other times which you can bring this point up to other people, then you're get them to say yes. Certainly persist professionally, not pushy, but you're always coming back with reasons, with legitimate reasons of why they should say yes. And again, it's not push, push, push. It's the way I understood you to say that the price was too high, or you seem concerned that we can't deliver on time. Is that correct? Well, let me show you some examples about that. Here, let me call up my printer right now, which I've done in negotiating circumstances. I've actually made a call to somebody else to verify what I was saying. Certainly, don't beg. Don't go in there with knee pads on. But if you can uh, come across as a professional, as a consultant, you're much more likely to get the order on win-win terms. Certainly with a focus on the buyer, letting them know that you're there to solve their problem, and that you can help them succeed. And not selling your books, keep working up that value pyramid. So you're selling the content and creating that vision together and letting them know that there's that risk reduction in their career and their personal growth. Listening to any when they describe why they don't want to do it, and listen and then come back with those ways of getting around it. And don't take it personally. As I said before, it's going to happen. It's a lot less likely that you're going to make the sale on the first call. The post-sale actions. This is where you're after the order. What you need to do to make sure that the order goes through in the appropriate ways. Everybody is happy. So after you get the order, what do you do? First of all, don't keep on selling after the buyer buys. Don't say, "Boy, I wish you'd." I'm glad you didn't bring up this point because others have said that too, and I don't know what I would have said if you'd said that. I've actually experienced that with other people, other sales reps doing that when I was a sales manager. Send that summary letter that lists all responsibilities and timelines and deadlines, and do everything you promised. If you promised to get that summary letter to them in 2 days, then do it. And or if you promised that you would come up with a sample for the tip-in page that you in fact do that. So you really want to help them get more value from the purchase. Again, move them up that value pyramid, so they're getting the personal value, the career value, the inspirational value, and that's what differentiates you from every other book, every other coffee mug, every other product that's out there. And then look for and eliminate the red flags. These are things that the problems that may come up, and you've got to work on those very quickly and get that and solve any problems that occur with the order. So if there are persistent problems with the order, if the shipping is or the printing is not, maybe they have a cloth cover and they can't come up with the color that they want, they have to put that on special order, and that's going to change the price. Well, let them know that very quickly that there are some problems. So let them know as soon as possible that the problems have occurred. If they ordered 10,000 books and then change it to 5,000 later, well, why? Go and talk to them. Or there's an increase in complaints, or a lot of times you'll hear saying, "Well, yeah, they should have gone with that other book we were looking at. I saw that title on the bestseller list last week. Maybe I should have gone with that." You hear more signs like that, then maybe that other author is in there talking to them too. If they're not taking your phone calls, decrease in rapport. If they're getting voicemail all the time, they don't return the calls, or a lot of times you get a replacement person that, "Hey, Brian, I got some good news for you. I just got promoted, or I just got a new job, and here's my replacement." And then you've got to start all over again. It's not fun, but it's something that you have to do. Then expand your business with the customers. Once that sale is completed and you've delivered and they have received the results that you have discussed, well, then ask for referrals within the company. Maybe other divisions or other groups, other parts of the company can use your content to help with their problems. Ask for referrals. Talk to your ally in there, any of your suppliers, any of your customers that could use this content to help with them. May use your name as a referral, or sell more of your product line. If you're the publisher going in there, maybe you have other titles. And once everything is done, create these brainstorming sessions where you're working together. We really did a good job with that last campaign. Let's start talking about the next one. How we can try to top that. What do you say? Let's meet next week, and we'll just take an hour set aside to just come up with new ideas and upgrade to new products. Maybe you have a new edition or a sequel to your book. Well, let them know that that's the case. The 10 ways to maintain the business. So show them what you're thinking of. Send them articles. Send them information on a regular basis. That this may be once you get the sale or once the sale is complete, and just let them maybe send an article or something that was in today's paper. You just cut it out or send them a link to it. Maybe have some new titles that you can offer them some discounts. You know, the friends and family discount, where you're maybe some old backlist titles that you have that you offer them a special consideration on. That's, you know, we talked before about if your contact is promoted or leaves the company anyway, work with a replacement. Don't treat that. Don't just assume that that person is up to speed. You have to go back and get them as excited about your book as you were initially when you transferred that enthusiasm. You know, keep the notes and records, and if the books are damaged, take them back. You know, they signed the agreement for non-returnable books, but those are non-returnable if the books are delivered properly. You work it out with the shipping person or company that damaged the books, and it's not their responsibility. You take responsibility for that, or it's their responsibility probably if they chose the shipper, but you help them do that. And they may not like your book, or they may love you, but they say we just don't like the content. Well, or there's a big part that's missing here. Well, find other books. Maybe there are other books out there that could solve their problem that you know of, and then sell that. But then obviously take a percentage of that. Follow through on your commitments. Ask for referrals. Ask them to give you. May I use your name as a testimonial? Could you give me a one paragraph testimonial that I can use? And then meet periodically, particularly until the books are delivered. Make sure that you contact them, meet with them, and just review the progress and let them know if there are any problems that come up. So you're always keeping those lines of communication open so that when they stop taking your calls, you know something is wrong. So those are 10 ways to maintain the business, but also give more than you promised. Let them know that you have committed to this, but you're willing to give 110% to make this work. Then evaluate it. You know, we talked before about PI, plan, implement, and evaluate. So we prepared, we implemented it, and now we're evaluating it. What went right? Particularly if you have two people on in the negotiation, this is where that can really help. We're talking to each other. What questions or objections that you just didn't come up with an answer, or what people issues? Are there anything you could have done to build the trust or to create more of rapport? Are you calling on the right people? Are you calling on the C prospects first, or maybe B prospects before you call on your A's? Did you qualify and prioritize them right? So you didn't want to call on your A prospects first and make all the mistakes. How can you improve your presentation skills leading to the negotiation, and what are your negotiating skills? And can you listen better? And how can you listen better? And how can you demonstrate that you're listening, whether it's through asking questions, making listening noises, whatever that may be. So thank you very much for joining me on this book selling university course about negotiating large quantity sales. And I hope that you found this was a good course for you.